You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hey folks, it's Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. There are these things that makes official. Welcome to the big show. As always, the Chris Voss Show, for 2,600 episodes, going on 17 years, has been bringing you the amazing authors, the stories, the wonderful minds that share with you their journeys and their experiences and help you improve the quality of your life. And if you haven't improved the quality of your life through the Chris Voss Show, well, go back and listen to all 2,600 episodes. Jesus. What do you want, people? We're doing everything we can here for you. Anyway, guys, refer the show to your family, friends, and relatives. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, Facebook.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, and I think Facebook.com whatever. You guys know all these all. Anyway, we really need to put that on a record. We have an amazing young man on the show with us today. We're going to be talking about his latest book that just came out November 6th, 2025, or November 4th, actually. It is entitled Business Beyond Borders, Stories, Tales, and Lessons Learned from Working in 100 Cultures Around the World. Dean Foster joins us on the show today. We're going to be talking about his insights, his experience, and all that cool stuff. He's a world-renowned expert in cross-cultural communication. He spent more than 30 years helping Fortune 500 companies, governments, and universities do business across borders with confidence. His new book, he brings his lessons of life through unforgettable real-world stories, from negotiating with Bedouins to the Libyan Sahara, to managing teams in Rio de Janeiro, to giving a keynote during an earthquake in Mexico City. Boy, that'll move you. And even losing a government handler in Beijing. That's an interesting story. We'll get into that. Through these engaging experiences, he shows how cultural awareness can transform the way leaders communicate, motivate, and manage an increasingly divided world. Welcome to the show, Dean. How are you?
Hey, Chris, I'm doing great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thanks for coming on the show. Give us your .coms. Where do people find you on the interwebs?
Yeah, any information about me, just go to deanfosterglobal.com.
There you go. And so give us a 30,000 overview. What's inside your new book?
Oh, my new book is all about how to understand work in different cultures when you're working around the world, but from a perspective that's a little bit different. You know, I've written 5 books before this one, and each one was sort of like a how-to book. Do this in China, don't do this when you're in India, etc. And it was all about getting people to have more successful business when working in other cultures. But this book is sending the same message, but through my stories. Because I'm telling chapter by chapter what happened to me when I was in India, what happened to me when I was trying to do business in China, and the lessons that I learned, hoping that these lessons would be useful to others.
There you go. Well, CEOs and leaders nowadays, politicians, all that sort of stuff, you know, you've got to understand multicultural diversity and around the world, you know, because pretty much everybody does business around the world now. I think even the Chris Voss Show does. It's a diverse world, and there's different traditions, the standards, and you know, I remember I met a Russian one time. I think he came to my house, and I opened the door and went to shake his hand, and he said to me, he goes, "No, we don't shake hands across doors."
That's right, very bad. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was like, okay, well, you know, and everyone's got a different thing, so.
Yeah. In fact, it takes good luck and turns it into bad luck.
Does it really? So
Yes.
It's like walking under a ladder in Russian, huh?
Yeah, sort of. And you want it also. It makes you want to invite the person in, and then you shake hands. And if you really know each other, you give each other a big hug. And if you really know each other, you give them a big hug and a kiss on the cheek.
Oh, there you go. And if you really know each other,
no, we're not going to go there.
You go push one of them off the balcony. Evidently, that's
Right.
popular in Russia, I hear.
Right.
I'm not sure why, but there's a lot of people that there's an old joke in Russia that the most expensive penthouse is the bottom floor. Because it's not more expensive at the top floor. It's more expensive to be on the bottom because it's harder to get thrown out a window or
Right,
a porch.
it's the privileged position.
Oh. Wait, he had a ground floor unit. How did he fall out of the window and die? How did he fall down the stairs? I don't understand. Well, in Russia, the TV watches you. Anyway, so you talk about the number one most important rule for doing business anywhere in the world. What is that? Because
Yeah, I get this question a lot. Like, what's the one thing you need to know, no matter where you are, that's going to help you doing business when you're outside your own culture? And I think the number one thing comes back to me again and again is you've really got to cultivate a sense of humility and display that humility in a sincere way to send the message to the other people that you're working with that you understand you are a guest in a strange world, their world, and you don't understand all the things that you need to understand in order to really truly be successful. So you don't come in with guns blazing with all the solutions and with the best proposal and you got to buy this because I know what I'm doing and this is the best thing that you ever did. No, you're going to get deer in the headlights and worse if you do that.
yeah,
Got to go in and demonstrate an openness to understanding who they are and to respecting who they are. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to agree with them. It doesn't mean that you have to like them. It doesn't even mean that you have to endorse the way that they live their lives. There may be lots of things about their culture that could be pretty reprehensible and that you'll never be able to accept. But if you choose to do business with them, you've got to understand them and show them the respect that you do understand them. And that's where the hard work comes in. That's where you need to understand things as simple as the do's and don'ts. Don't shake hands across an entryway in Russia. Okay. By the way, that may not be a bad thing in another culture, but
maybe a good thing,
right? And there's thousands and thousands of these things. So you've got to demonstrate humility. You don't have all the answers. In fact, they may have some answers to things that you've never thought about because of the way you see the world.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely changed my perspective when I had a Russian do that to me when he came to my house. And I, I was like, well, why is that? And it's just like any other thing. You've got to understand and empathize and have rapport with your customer. I mean, whether they're an American, an English speaking, and the way our traditions work here in America. But yeah, going someplace else, you don't want to come across as the quote unquote asshole American.
Right.
You said, like you said, coming guns blazing, like I'm American. We're here to help you.
Exactly.
Yeah, sure. We've all seen that movie.
Exactly.
The talk to Afghanistan and Iraq. So, geez, we can do Vietnam.
Well, you can. That list is a long list.
It's gotten quite long, hasn't it?
Yeah.
American. We're fuck yeah. Anyway, so yeah, learning these things, understanding your deals, and then there's different ways that people do business. I was reading about some of the ways that they do, the bribery you have to do in like India and the kind of the grift that's over there and different things. And like, if you want to do business, you got to bribe certain officials. I think in China that you got to, I don't know if it's still the same, but it used to be in China. If you want to do business with you had to find someone to own part of the company.
Yes. Well, the government in China, if you're doing business in China, you got to understand that 51% at least of the company that you're working with is government run, government owned, or government responsible.
Wow.
Right.
Wow. And so globalization is slowing, according maybe to your book, but still understanding culture matters.
Yeah, right. Well, when I wrote my first 5 books, it was in a world that was just starting to globalize. We were just certainly U.S. Americans were just starting to do business in other countries on a big scale, and so it made sense. It was truly intuitive, almost logical to think that, wait a minute, if I'm going into a place like South Africa, I need to understand how they do things there in order to be effective.
Mhm.
So providing cultural information, which is what my company does and what we've been doing ever since, made sense. It was like a no-brainer.
Mhm.
But the world's changed, at least temporarily, it seems, right now, in
Mhm.
this moment, not of globalization, but of deglobalization. Instead
Mm.
of building bridges and opening up free trade, we're imposing tariffs and we're looking inward.
Yeah.
And this is, of course, a political issue and a political decision. It has no
Mhm.
basis in economics,
Mhm.
and it's not going to improve either our country or the country we're trying to do business with.
Yep.
But it is something that's happening now. And
Mhm.
so, on the other hand, writing this new book for me was kind of a head scratcher. It was improbable. I mean, why, when we're devaluing the benefit of understanding cultural differences, when we're not looking at DAI as an opportunity,
Mhm.
then why continue to talk about how important it is to manage cultural differences? And
Yeah.
then I realized, because it is even more now in this moment,
Mhm.
because the smart money is still on expanding your opportunities into global markets. In
Definitely.
fact, in fact, I think as domestic markets become insulated and we just focus inward, um, these companies, big multinational companies, they're still working in the rest of the world. And they're looking at the situation and they're saying, wait a minute, my market in the US is shrinking. I got to go out there and I don't know how to do that. So let me understand the culture.
Mhm.
I mean, I like to say that the toothpaste isn't going back in the tube, but
Yeah.
globalization is increasing and big business knows that. And so you have to understand how to do that in other cultures.
Mm. Mm. There you go. There you go. So it's yeah. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if SCOTUS upholds the tariff sort of thing. I guess they're the ones visiting it and how that whole thing pans out. But yeah, it's created an economic crisis that's really destroyed the economy. It's just there's so many people hurting right now. It's not even funny. I'm in a lot of business groups and uh, restaurant groups and different small business groups, and they're all going out of business, and they're just getting killed by the tariffs and the prices of everything from the tariffs.
And you can be sure that if that's the result in our country here,
Hmm.
then business isn't going to look to increase its growth or see its opportunities domestically.
Yeah.
They're going to see their opportunities elsewhere,
Hmm.
everywhere else, but not here.
Hmm. Yeah. The yeah, I mean, business is going to go where it is. I mean, big CS shows coming up here in January, and it'll be interesting to see how that goes as well. In you've spent 30 plus years in 100 countries. What has it taught you about human connection and connecting with other human beings and gaining rapport?
It's the first and essential issue.
Mm.
You've got to build a trustworthy working relationship. Now, how
Hmm.
you do that in different countries is different.
Hmm.
And there are some cultures, for example, where when you're coming together with them, the first thing they think about is, "Oh, this is cool. This guy seems interesting. His proposal seems good. I'm going to listen, and we'll be partners and try to figure out the best possible deal for both of us."
Hmm.
And then there are other cultures that go, "Wait a minute, I don't know this guy. Who does
Hmm.
he think he is? And what's this proposal all about?" And I like to think of these cultures, the difference between, win-win cultures where they
Hmm.
see a negotiation as something that both parties have to benefit from. And then there are these win-lose cultures where until you have taken the time to build trust, their assumption is if I'm going to get anything out of this, you have to lose something.
Ah.
And now how you build those relationships so that they, in both cases, so that they become a trusting relationship where you can then move on to really dealing with the details in the weeds about how to make this business work. That has to be done differently depending on where you are.
Hmm. Yeah, it definitely makes a difference. And so, do you want to tease out maybe one of the favorite stories you have from the book? There's 25 real stories in there. Do you want to tease one out a little bit?
Yeah, well, one of my favorite stories in the book, and you had mentioned it before, was when I was in Beijing, and I was I had a few hours and I wanted to tour the city. It was the first time I was in Beijing. This is going back a bit. And I got a tour guide because you can't do things on your own. You have to go with a tour guide, and these
Mhm.
tour guides are government licensed, so they've got two jobs. See, they have to tour you around and give you a happy time, and
Mhm.
then they also have to be sure that if there's anything about you that they think the government needs to know,
Mm.
that they'll pass that information on.
Mm.
And so I'm going around, and my tour guide takes me to Tiananmen Square,
Mhm.
and that's the big central square in Beijing. And if you remember that back in
Mhm.
1989, I believe was where we had the massacre of the students by
Mhm.
the government army, but
Mhm.
and the People's Army.
Mhm.
And I knew that I had to be very careful in the questions that I posed to this person, and I knew not only because they were actually partly responsible to me and partly responsible to the government, that I had to phrase my questions carefully, and also because in Chinese culture, going back 5,000 years, the way that you say things is perhaps even more important than what you say.
Mhm.
And this raises the whole issue when you work across cultures of communication style. There are some cultures that rely on direct, clear communications in both directions. And then there are some that say, well, no, you can kind of like imply things. In fact, it's more important to imply and infer than say things clearly, because if you say things clearly, then you can be blamed for saying certain things.
Ah.
But if you imply them, it's hard to stick the guilty sticker on you, right?
Ah.
And Chinese culture has emphasized um, the the im- the style that's more, shall we say, less direct. So
Ah.
I knew I had to change my communication style, and I said, okay, we're standing here in Tiananmen Square, and I have to ask you, could you tell me more about what happened here?
Mm.
And her answer was, well, we know that in the Western media, they said that a lot of people were killed here, but we didn't hear that.
Wow.
That was her answer. And that was very interesting to me because it was like shifting the responsibility for knowing about what happened without having her to actually say it.
Ah.
And and that's how we spoke about most everything that afternoon. It was very indirect. And it
Wow.
was a real lesson for me once again about how to communicate in Chinese culture, very very carefully, very indirectly, where you imply and you infer, but you do not state.
Yeah. Is it because the statement kind of sounds more like a accusation?
No, I think it's that if you say something clearly, then you can be held more accountable for it,
What a game.
and that has risked.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to be off with the head or whatever the hell they do over
Or
there.
just hold away.
Yeah. All the way. All the way. I never heard from him again. What happened to Bob? I don't know. He was over in China asking about Tiananmen Square. And suddenly he disappeared like the guy in front of the tank.
No.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting, and how you have to dance around certain ways that people do things. Like the Japanese seem like they're very overly polite, and it works
Mhm.
for their culture. Maybe we need some of that humility in our culture.
Well,
Um, Go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say that's a really important point that you're raising, Chris,
Hmm.
and that is that maybe there's something we can learn from the other culture. Um, like you said, the Japanese communicate in a very, very polite way, and
Hmm.
there are reasons for that that are unique to Japanese culture.
Hmm.
We see it as very polite. The Japanese just see it as the way we do it.
Hmm.
For them, they're not judging it. It's just the way you communicate when you're with another person. And maybe that's something we can learn. Maybe there's a benefit in that for
Yeah.
us. So I think cultural differences really aren't pains in the neck. I think they're little gifts
Mm.
that we have to unwrap very carefully, because maybe we can see something about and learn something about the way we do things that can benefit us. We
Hmm.
can be a little bit selfish about it. Sure,
Oh
why
yeah,
not?
sure. But yeah, I mean, some of the things that we've the asshole American sort of trope that it's been around since what, the 60s or something, where we
Yeah,
we kind of go around the world and we have this indignant attitude that the world revolves around us. And I think we're finding that it doesn't, because there's a lot of people that are finding other ways to. The world's literally learning to work without us right now in 2025.
exactly.
Um, and it's really upending powers. So it'll be interesting to see how the whole thing turns out. I guess old Chinese curse may live in interesting times. Let's talk about
Precise.
some of the offerings you have on your website. What are some of the things you do there? Tell us about some of that.
Yeah, well, if you go to deanfosterglobal.com, you'll see that my books are up there, all six of them now. The latest one, the um, Business Beyond Borders, Stories, Tales, and Lessons Learned Working in 100 Cultures Around the World. But my other books are up there too. So if you take a look at them and they find them interesting, you can order them. And then my work has always been to go into an organization and consult with that organization. And what are the problems you're having? Let's tease out the cultural piece, because if you don't get the culture right, everything else, the culture is going to eat your lunch.
Yeah.
So, so we do a lot of consulting, a lot of training. I do a lot of speaking at conferences about this issue, and you can find all that information there. You can find my articles, and you can find information about our podcast, which is "Oops, Your Culture Showing."
I like the title. That's pretty fun.
Well, you are who you are, right? I'm a U.S. American from New York. I think you heard the sirens outside just a moment ago,
Hmm.
and that's the New York soundtrack, and that's who I am, right? So no matter where in the world I am, I'm still this New York middle-aged white guy, and I have to be that way because anything else is just inauthentic. But at the same time, I can be who I am in a way that understands and respects the other and
Hmm.
understands why the other is who they are too.
Hmm.
And then we can get on the same page and move forward.
Ah.
And so there's we like to talk about that on the podcast because
Hmm.
yes, your culture's showing. I'm
Hmm.
always my culture's showing,
Hmm.
but hopefully I'm the more enlightened American because that's my job.
Yeah.
So I better be.
Yeah. I mean, that's how you have to be. I mean, got to understand your customer no matter where you are in the world. If you're selling internationally, you've got to understand your customer, their needs, their wants, and some of the cultural, um, I want to, I guess regulations is the best word I can come up with, but some of their different regulations, whether it's politically or just business wise, how they do business and what you got to do to make things work. So how can people find out more about you? How can they work with you on a coaching level, consulting, speaking, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, well, go to the website, deanfosterglobal.com, shoot me an email, and I'll certainly be getting right back to you. And it'll most likely be me.
There you go. And thank you very much, Dean, for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Folks, order the book wherever fine books are sold. It's called Business Beyond Borders: Stories, Tales, and Lessons Learned from Working in 100 Cultures Around the World. I think, more and more Americans need to get outside the U.S. and need to see what's going on. I remember I had a big awakening in 2001 with 9/11, where I was like, wait, people in the world hate us? What's going on?
Was
Wait,
that
maybe
something? Was that something you didn't realize before that there was?
I kind of did. I knew there were places that didn't like us, but it really became home that there was something deeply wrong with America's representation in the world, or how we were perceived when people are, having terrorist acts put upon you.
Mm,
It really brought it home, and I mean that's it's easy to be like, yeah, people hate us over there, fuck them, whatever, right? But when they're when they're driving planes into your buildings,
mm,
it becomes a thing where you got to wake up, you got to sit up and pay some attention, right? You got to
yeah.
go, wait, we're not that popular in the world, evidently.
Mm,
Everyone doesn't love us. Everyone doesn't think we asshole Americans the greatest thing ever.
mm,
And that made me start learning about the world and focusing on the world. We've talked about this a number of times on the show, where it used to be, like in the 50s, 60s, I don't know about the 50s, but 60s or 70s, people would go off and do Peace Corps.
Hmm.
And it was a great way for them to go see the world. There's some religions that send missionaries internationally. And it's a great way for people, Americans, to go see the world, and that, cultures are different. And they're still human beings behind those cultures. They're just different territorial flags we use, and it's the humanity that matters. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that was something that woke me up, because I was like, I thought, we're the greatest country in the world and all that kind of riffraff. And then, seeing that, we were under terrorist attack. I remember when they didn't have to have the cement, whatever you call them, the blockades in front of the White
Yes.
House.
Right.
I don't think they had a real official fence.
Mm.
I think, didn't they just have like a gate or some shit?
Mm.
Um, but I remember them, watching them put the concrete barriers down in front of the White House. I was like, shit, we've reached this moment. This is a
Mhm.
new thing, And I like you, remember what it was like to go to the airport and not have to be,
Yeah. Right.
not have to deal with all that riffraff.
Oh, just deal with all that. Right.
Take your shoes off. Really? How much explosives can you get in a shoe? But
Mhm.
evidently you can. Anyway, thank you very much for coming to the show, Dean. We really appreciate it.
Chris, it was great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And thanks so much for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss. Order up his book wherever fine books are sold. Facebook.com/Chris Voss, and all those crazy places on the internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. I'll see you guys next time.